Entirely as expected, the Rwanda bill, which had been heavily amended in the Lords, went back to the Commons. The Lords' emendations were ignored, and the bill went through almost unscathed in the Commons and has now gone back to the House of Lords, where further amendments have been added by the Lords, and it's due for a second reading on Wednesday, today. And in all likelihood, it's going to go back into the House of Commons with further amendments to try and amend in the same way as it was amended originally by the House of Lords. What this will do in practice is to, in the words of James Cleverly, delay, disrupt, or sabotage the scheme. And he says that the House of Lords should recognise it's time to let this bill pass so we can continue to stop the boats and save lives. Except it's not about stopping the boats. The boats aren't going to be stopped. There's just going to be a few people put on flights to Rwanda. And it's not going to save lives because the Rwanda bill doesn't tackle the smugglers. It tackles the people who are already victimised and who are already traumatized by their experience of being trafficked across probably the Mediterranean and then the Channel. So the rhetoric that James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, is using is the same sort of rubbishing rhetoric which started with Theresa May. The rot crept into the Home Office with Mrs. May, and I think it's important to recognise who should take responsibility for the way this is panning out. As for the Prime Minister's pledge to stop the boats, this is one of 5 pledges he's made. Can anybody tell me the other 4? No, of course you can't, because the only thing we can ever remember is 3. And if the Prime Minister is so determined to have 5 pledges, what is the difference between them? Even when I lay out the 5 pledges, I can't identify clearly the difference between one and another. And that's because it's vague and woolly, and these have been plucked out of the air as some sort of initiative dash promise dash a commitment to doing something rather than doing nothing, while the Prime Minister and his friends in the cabinet cling on to power until the last possible moment. So the Home Office has now apparently identified 150 migrants to be put on the first 2 deportation flights. And almost certainly there will be some attempt at legal redress. Whether that will have any effect or not is a good question, because that is what will be determined by the amendations of the House of Lords today. And will this help Rishi to win the next election? I think it's a niche interest. And it's a niche interest I'm interested in, because I think it's a serious abuse of power. And there is certainly a large number of Lords, like Lords Falconer, Carlisle, who will insist on trying to get these amendments put back in some form to put the brakes on this, well, among other things, contempt of the legal system. And while the government locks heads with law, so law is finding ways to lock heads with the government. And I don't think when you sit back and you watch these 2 pillars of our society slagging it out and hitting one another, I don't think that gives anyone any sense of confidence in the system, does it? Not that I can see.